But there are other statements, but the one that I can think of, Constable Zongo, because he even identifies them in his statements that this is the person that is referring to in terms of the pictures. So identify a picture of accused 3 and referred him as, I think, the surname Buthelezi, and I can go to his statement. So I'm saying there was no dispute as to say the name, even though there's a Buthelezi surname, but the person that is being referred to is Mr. Mncube, who is accused number 3.
Noma ke sengacabanga ke la kodwa oqala nje ngacabanga ngayo yona ke uConstable Zungu uma elisho ke igama lelo kodwa uma esesitshengisa ke isithombe khombe yena ke umsolo wesithathu athi noma ke ngibiza yena ke uCarlos Buthelezi kodwa ke ngikhuluma nangumuntu engikhuluma ngaye akhombe yena ke umsolo wesithathu.
Now, one of the reasons that you also mentioned was the issue of DNA evidence, and you read the report in respect of the people that were in the house. You remember that?
I do remember that, my lord.
Ufundileke kunombiko ufundileke lana waloke uyizofuza noma phecelezi ke yona ke DNA ufunda ke ngabo abantu abesendini yebo kuyiqiniso.
And that report excluded the house as donors of certain areas that were swapped. Remember?
I do remember that, my lord.
Nokuthi ke lowo mbiko ke ubakhiphileke abantu abendini ke nokuthi ke ungayibona ke abangabe bashiya ke la ekwatholakala khona ubufakazi noma ke igazi yebo kuqiniso.
What about the accused persons before court from accused 1 to 5? Does DNA link them to the 26th of October 2014?
My lord,
according to the report of
yes, I'm going there. Yes. I'm going there. I'm just trying to find the right words, my lord, because when I tried to venture into this aspect during the evidence in chief, it was greatly objected by by Mr. Mnisi, because I was actually going to accuse 3. So I'm trying to find the ways as to how should I actually answer the question, because my answer will be saying the report, my recollection of the report made by the police, the captain who made the report, who's an expert, excluded, at the end of the day, he says he's excluding some of, well, all of the accused. However, my lord, because, and this is the part that I'm saying, when you read the report, you must read it in its entire context. You can't just select the last portion and ignore the person, what he's saying above. Somewhere above, he links some of the accused in terms of what he can read. The only difficulty is that he could not find all the markers, all the certain markers to make a conclusive finding. So I was dealing with it in that context, but as I said, it didn't sit well with Mr. Mnisi and I think Mr. Mshololo in terms of my expertise, but my reliance really was what is contained on the report. So I'm not sure whether you want me to take it further than this, Mr.
Ngizama ke noma ke ubheka ke amagama ke afanelekile noma ekuwona ke engingawasebenzisa ngoba lo mbuzo ke uma bengizama ke ukuthi ke ngiwuphenduleke kube nala khona ke kube nenkinga khona ke kuyena ke uadvocate Mnisi kanye naye ke advocate Mshololo ngoba ke uyasho umbiko lona egcineni ke ukuthi ke ama DNA nabasola kodwa ke uma ubheka nje lapho egcineni uzothola lokho kodwa uma ubuka ke ngaphambili kubona ke umbiko ukuthi ke uthini ukuthi bakhona abasolwa ke abafakwayo noma ke ebahlanganisayo ukuthi nje lokho kubizwa ngokuthi phecelezi ke ama marker akutholakele anele ukuthi ke angasho ukuthi ngempela ke ayabafaka.
And I was saying this, my lord, in the sense that, for example, when you are looking at the investigation, if, for example, we know even the fingerprints, you need to get a certain regions of it, to make a conclusive finding. But if you have an individual where the expert says I can only get 4, but that 4 can be read into the suspect or the person that you're looking at. In the purpose of the investigation, you cannot ignore that person because you've got guidance. But it does not mean you are making a conclusive findings of the fingerprints. Same with the DNA. There are, for example, accused number 5 is completely excluded, complete in my recollection of what that report says. But it says certain things that the examiner find with regard to other accused, and that's where I was at, my lord.
Futhi ke lokhu ke uma singenza nje ke isiboneleko mayelana nawo ke ama fingerprints uma kwenziwa ke uphenyo lapho ke siyazi ukuthi ke kune number ethize yalokho okubhekwayo ke kufanele itholweke kodwa uma kuwukuthi ke akutholakala kanga konke lokho akusho ukuthi ke manje ke kuzokufanele ke ngikushaye indiva ke lokho ngingakunaki lokho akushoyo lo akuyena obenza lolo phenyo lolo uma sesingabuyela khona lana ke uma singathatha yena ke umsolo wesihlanu uma ke lo obenza lelo phenyo ke ushilo ukuthi ke akukho nje lutho ke atholile ngaye umsolo wesihlanu kodwa ke engasho okufanayo mayelana nabanye.
And I think it's the same position with accused number 1, my lord, that in my recollection the report did not find any, even if it's not complete markers, any with regard to accused 1. And that, my lord, it's in support of the investigation because the investigation indicates that accused 5 was outside. He was the driver of the vehicle, and I'm saying it's alleged in terms of the investigation. And accused 1 was standing outside, so he could have not left anything. It doesn't matter how small or big, anything, because there would have been a contradiction. So there is a collaboration in that sense. But as I said, the markers and the issues that the two advocates had a concern about is what I wanted to go into, but it wasn't sitting well with the defense.
Kuyafana ke noma singakhuluma ngaye ke umsolo wesihlanu wokuqala ngexolisa ke ukuthi ke nalapho ke akukho okutholakele ukuthi ke khona ke okwasalela noma ke awakushiya ke khona lapho lokho ke kuyahambisana ke nalo ke uphenyo esilenzile ngoba ke lasho ke uphenyo ukuthi ke umsolo wokuqala yena ke wayimi ngaphandle umsolo wesihlanu wayengaphandle naye ke esemotweni ngoba uyena noma insolo zithi ke waye ngaphandle ke kuyena oshayela imoto ngakho ke akukho awayengakushiya ke lapho yilokho ke bengifisa ukuthi ngikusho ke nangaphambilini kodwa kwaba yila khona ke abameli baba nenkinga.
Yes, my lord.
Brigadier, the bottom line is that the DNA expert that came here excluded all 5 accused persons because there is a certain minimum and maximum that you must meet for you to include persons as donors of a DNA sample. So all 5 of them were excluded, and it's not up to you to interpret that evidence. He spoke, he testified at length, going through each and every single marker where there were points of commonality, differences, but the bottom line remains. He excluded all 5 accused persons before court.
My lord, that's not how I understand the investigation is done. And like I said, that's why I left this part, and I think the state advocate also, we moved away from that part, but now I'm being asked a question about it. That's not how I understand the investigation is being done. If a person, my lord, I'll make an example, make a statement to say I was robbed by this and this person, and at the end of the day, he give you the context where he was, what was taken, whether it was male, black or white or colored, but at the end of the statement he says, I cannot identify those people. That doesn't mean a crime didn't take place, and that does not mean because he says I can't identify the perpetrators, you must now forget everything that has been mentioned above. That's not how you do investigation. There are certain pointers, and if those pointers, no matter how small they are, points to some of the accused, it becomes collaboration evidence. I'm not saying it's a fact because you are not an expert, my lord, but it's a pointer. It's the same, for example, with what is contained in Mr. Ramosepele's client's confession. When he says, I was with accused 1, 3, 4, and 5, it's what he says. It's not a fact. We needed collaboration evidence to prove indeed that there was such, my lord. So it's the first part. It must be corroborated for a conclusive finding to be made at the end.
Kodwa ke akukuwena ke ukuthi ke manje umusha kanjani noma utolika kanjani ke ukuthi ke yini le ayishilo ufakazi kodwa ufakazi ke yena uma noma ngenkathi ebelana ke ushilo ke ukuthi ke akukho okwatholakala okuhlanganiswa noma okushoyo ke ukuthi abasola bobahlanu laba babe laphayana kwisigameko ngaleli yalanga ke uthi ke akusiyona ke indlela leyo uphenyo oluhamba ngayo wabesenza ke isibonelo ukuthi uma ngabe umuntu eyovula ke icala esho ukuthi ke kunomuntu obambe inkunzi uzomusho ke ukuthi umuntu omnyama umuntu omhlophe umuntu ekhaladi yini kodwa ke abe egcineni athi ngeshwa ke uma ngathola ke ithuba angeke ngikwazi ke ukuthi ke lo muntu lowo ngimkhombe noma ngimusho akusho ke ukuthi kufanele ukushaya indiva lokho akushilo ke ngaphezulu noma ukuthi ke uphenyo luthe luyaphelela lapho kunama-marker noma-ke ama-pointers athile. Uma kuwukuthi-ke ama-pointer athile akhomba uhlangothi oluthile noma kwabanye babasolwa-ke akusho ukuthi akunganakwa lokho.
And this assertion, my lord, does not mean I'm saying the statement links them. That should not be misunderstood. I'm not saying the expert says their DNA is conclusively found. I was basically referring to what efforts or steps I took in my investigations, what guided me.
Okunye futhi-ke akushilo-ke ufakazi ukuthi-ke uma ungabheka-ke noma ubuke sona-ke istatimende sogonyuluka sakhe-ke umsolo wesibili la ashoyo-ke khona-ke ukuthi wayekade enaye-ke umsolo wokuqala, owesithathu, owesine kanye-ke nowesihlanu. Asishongo-ke ukuthi-ke lokho kuphelele kodwa kwafanele ukuthi manje-ke senze uphenyo-ke phezu kwalokho akushilo. Okunye futhi-ke angisho ukuthi-ke lo mbiko lowo wofakazi bekade lana-ke ukuthi-ke umbiko othi-ke cha ngempela-ke lokho bakwenza-ke kodwa sengiyakusho nje ngiyachaza-ke ukuthi yilokho akusho.
And like Advocate Munisi correctly said when he stood up on this point, it is not your opinion, Kenneth. It's the opinion of the DNA expert on this point.
My lord, I think we are on the same page and we're saying the same thing. As said, I am making this submission does not mean I'm saying the expert was wrong in saying what he said. I agree with his conclusion. I'm simply saying above, if you look above what is contained there, what it says. That's number one. But number two, I do recall, my lord, that DNA, it's a mixed DNA. The donor of the second DNA was never found, which is a female, to make a conclusive finding. That's what I seem to recall during my interaction with the expert or our interaction. But there is no dispute, and such must not be created, my lord, as if I'm standing here contradicting the expert to say he is wrong. I understand the report that is written there and I agree with him, but I'm simply saying on top, he indicates certain markers that were not good enough for him to make a conclusive finding. So it's not, in essence, my lord, a complete exclusion. That's what I'm saying. It's where somebody says, I've read this, 0. I've read this, 0. There are certain markers, but unfortunately they were not enough for the expert to make a conclusive finding, my lord.
Engishoyo-ke ukuthi lana sikhuluma-ke into eyodwa angimile la ukuthi ngiphikisane naye-ke umngodi noma ufakazi-ke owashoyo ukuthi akukho okufaka-ke abasolwa-ke lana akufani nesehlakalo la khona-ke umuntu ezayo ethi cha angitholanga lutho u-0, angitholanga lutho lana u-0 kodwa-ke uyasho ukuthi yebo kukhona-ke okutholakele kodwa-ke akwanele ukuthi-ke afinyelele kwisinqumo-ke esiphelele noma ekuyisona-ke.
So there's no conflict or difference of opinions insofar as what the expert is saying, my lord, and what I'm saying. But basically, and I'm not contradicting him or disagreeing with him.
Angiphikisani naye ukuthi-ke noma ngiphikisani naye-ke noma ngisho okunye okuhlukile kuloko akushoyo-ke mina nanjengoba ngime la.
Okay. And then you also referred to the AVL report for the motor vehicle driven by Longwe Twala.
Yes, the tracker. I think it's a tracker. Yes, my lord.
The tracker.
The tracker system. Correct, my lord.
Ngikhulumile ngayo-ke i-tracker system mayelana-ke nemoto eyayishayelwa uyena-ke uLongwe Twala.
And in that context, how does it say that the relevance to there being intruders or no intruders?
Well, my lord, we know the cell phone, the missing phone, the phone that was in the same tower, including with Longwe prior to the commission of the incident, that after Longwe with his car and his phone tower, the number that he gave, goes to clinics, that phone goes to Muleleki. So if Longwe was the shooter, you would then have expect, and if this was a fabricated story of the so-called missing phone, you would have expected, and I said this, my lord, to see one of the people in particular, because we're talking about Mr. Longwe, going together with the so-called missing cell phone, or the phone remaining behind. So the essence of the AVL was to show, rather the tracking system, my lord, was to indicate that it was moving together with the cell phone and it went to the clinics. Contrary to the phone that was in the tower that was alleged to have been taken, which went to a different direction. And we could not find evidence as to who was there, because the people who were in the house all went to clinics. So people who in the house are sitting at the clinics with the deceased, my lord. The phone is sitting at the last tower of Moleleki. Then the question is, who is in possession of this phone if there were no intruders, or at least one person, because the phone cannot work on its own. So that was the essence of that submission, my lord.
okubaluleka noma kuba semqoka ke kwale mbiko kwe-AVL noma sort leya tracker ke mayelana nayo imoto ikalongwe ke nanjengoba kwakunale insolo ke eyishoyo ke uma kuwukuthi ke kwakuyena ke ulongwe ke owadubula ukuthi ke nale phone ke uma iya ngale kuloyela hlangothi njengoba laba basendlini bona ke baya eclinics ekuyila icosha khona ke neyakhe ke ulongwe ifone kusho ukuthi ke ubani ke manje lo owayephethe lo makhala ekhukhwini lo owaya kolunye uhlangothi ke emuleleki ngalesikhathi ke laba ababesendlini bona baya eclinics.
Okay. Now, let us move closer to these events now. And then we start with, you've made reference already to Exhibit BB, that is the identity kit with which you say you confronted accused number 2. You recall that?
I recall that, my lord, yes.
Ngiyakhumbula ke ngikhuluma ngayo ke umdwebo loyana noma ke identity kit engithi ke ngabuza umsolo noma ngakhulumisana nomsolo wesibili ngayo.
I'm going to request that it be beamed so that we all can see what we are referring to. My lord, I'm waiting for my learned colleague to connect to the monitor.
Sorry, in the meantime, you keep calling that cell phone a runaway phone.
Yes, my lord. It's basically the phone that belongs to Miss Kelly Kumalo, the 072 number.
But does it actually belong to her?
Yes, it's a cell phone, my lord.
And the number was also identified by Colonel Stein and the other gentleman.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes, but she also identifies it on her statements that it's her number.
Oh, she
and
says
it was yes, no, it is identified. It's identified that it's one of her cell phones that she disclosed to the police to say I have 2 cell phones, the 072 number which is alleged that was taken by the perpetrators, and then she remained with the 082 number.
So common sense or logic tells us that there must be forensic evidence before 8 o'clock going this way. There must be forensic evidence that that phone, the runaway phone, was inside the house.
There is forensic evidence, my lord. There is forensic evidence that place it in there together with the other cell phones.
Yes, yes.
But not only just her cell phones, with the other people who were in the house under the same location.
Okay.
After the incident, then we have these different directions, my lord.
I hear you.
Uyamana ukukhuluma ke ngalo makhalekhukhwini ukuthi ke lo makhalekhukhwini ke owabaleka noma ke runaway phone yebo ke washo ke yena ke uMiss Kelly Khumalo naye ke istatement sakho uyasho ukuthi wayena cell phone noma namba amabili u072 kanye no082 u072 ilona ke emuva kwesigameko owathathwa ke kukhona ke nomfakazi okushoyo ke futhi ukuthi leyo cell phone leyo ngaphambi kwesigameko yayikhona ke lapho endlini kanye nama cell phones abanye labo ababesendlini.
Okay, we do have Exhibit BB on the screen.
Yes, my lord.
Now, if we look at the depiction of the sketch on the left, I did ask this question before to, I think it was Sergeant Messiah. Is that photograph as well depicted with that sketch on the left with the hairstyle of dreadlocks, according to what you can see there?
No, it was a hoodie. Are you referring to
Yes,
the person
one
on the
on the
left hand
left.
side, on my
Yes.
left? No. The person with the hoodie is on the right. I mean, sorry, with dreadlocks, and the person on the left is wearing a hoodie, my lord.
Because I'm looking, if you can be given the pointer so that I can show you the parts that I'm referring to. Yeah? I'm not operating this.
Yes.
Yes, if we point, you
Here.
see on the, yes, those parts, and also on the left hand side.
Yes.
Do you see those parts?
Yes, I do.
Yes, are those depiction of dreadlock hairstyle, or is it just a background?
My lord, I
You can,
I think it will be difficult for me to say
Okay.
for the fact. I think I don't want to mislead. I do see that there's some blackness showing up there, but I can't say. It's more clearer here where you see the dreadlocks. So one can say it looks like it's part of the dreadlocks or the reflection of the picture. I don't know because I was not involved in this, my lord. That's a difficult I have.
Ubunzima enginabo-ke lana ukuthi ngangasiyona-ke ingxenye yabo khona-ke umnyama okubonakalayo-ke ukhuluma lana-ke nakulo hlangothi-ke kodwa ngeke ngisho ngesiqiniseko uma ubheka kubukeka engathi iwona-ke kodwa ngilana-ke kulesi sithombe wona-ke ayacaca ukuthi-ke iwona-ke ama-dreadlocks.
Okay, I'll revert back to Exhibit J because this is Exhibit BB, and
But
then
sorry, my lord, sorry, Mr. Ramosepele, to say something because it just cropped. It just came into my mind, my lord, that and obvious. Maybe let me not disturb your line of thought. I'll come back to it later because I think I might distract where you're going. It's fine. I'll come back to it later, my lord. But I want to say something about this picture.
okay.
Khona-ke bengifuna ukusho ngalesi sithombe kodwa ngizobuyela kona-ke kamuva angifuni ukuthi-ke ngiyiphazamise-ke imibuzo yakho.
And your testimony is that on the 18th of June 2020 and at Carltonville at Sibanye, when you spoke, interrogated, interviewed accused number 2, you then confronted him with this ID kit and you told him that the person depicted or the sketch depicted on the left bears a resemblance to him.
Yes, I did say that, my lord.
Ushilo ukuthi-ke nge-18 zika June 2020 esibanyeke wakhuluma-ke naye umsolo wesibili umtshela-ke ukuthi-ke umuntu lona-ke odwetshiwe-ke la noma kule identikit nako khona-ke noma-ke unabo-ke ukufana naye yebo ngakusho lokho kuyena.
My lord, what I forgot to mention, perhaps let me just deal with it. This is the part I was saying I want to deal with it later. I didn't mention it in my evidence in chief, is that when I was during the profiling process of the accused, obviously the ID, the age was determined. Now, when I made this assertion that I think this person looks like him, what I was also taking into account is that his ID number, in terms of the description given by one of the witnesses, he described the person with the hoodie. He described obviously the color of the hoodie, which I will get into, as the person who's about 25 years old. Now, if you look at the age of accused number 2, and you count backwards to 2014, it takes you exactly to 25 years. And that was described by one of the witnesses. It's Mr. Makaleni. We dealt with him. Mr. Ramosepele took me through when he was identified. He made a statement, but also when he was interviewed on the statement of Warrant Officer Steenkamp. We dealt with it last week. He says this person with the hoodie is 25 years old. He also mentions the measurements. I don't recall exactly as to how he says this person, how tall he is, my lord. But he further mentions the issue, the color of the hoodie that was worn by this second intruder. In other words, the person with not the second intruder, rather the person he saw outside wearing the hoodie, because he mentioned more than two people. But what is of importance is the age, which corresponds with the accused exactly. We can count even now backwards. It will take you to 25 years in 2014 when this incident took place. But furthermore, fast tracking now to after the 18th of June 2020, my lord, to the time when I interviewed Constable Zungu, and he subsequently submitted a statement. In his statement, he clearly indicates that at the hostel, and it's contained in his statement, accused 2 was wearing a black hoodie, which was described at the crime scene on the 24th. He says he was wearing a black hoodie. He changed to a different hoodie of a different color. But when they came back, or when you saw him, the hoodie was wearing is black in color. It's contained in his statement, my lord.
Lokho ebengifuna ukusho-ke ngaphambilini ngathi ngizobuyela kubona-ke kamuva-ke cabanga ukuthi-ke angikusho-ke khona manje ulona-ke udaba lwehudi nombala-ke owashiwo-ke kanye futhi-ke nokuthi-ke uma omunye wefakazi-ke cabanga ukuthi uyena-ke uMr Makeleni sikhulumile ngaye kwiviki elidlule esho-ke nokuthi-ke lo ambona-ke egqoke leyo hoodie iminyaka yakhe ke yayingaba ke u25 uma singabala ke ukusuka manje sibuyele emuva ke siya kena ke u2014 sesingathola ukuthi ngempela ke iminyaka yakhe ke umsola wesibili ke ihamba kona ke o25 futhi ke uyasho ke noma emkala ke ushilo kodwa ke angisakhumbula ukuthi wathini ukuthi ubude bakhe kwakuwumuntu wayemude kangakanani. Sibuyele futhi kuyena ke uConstable uZungu oshilo ke ukuthi ke ehostel ngathi ke belapho ke ukuthi ke umsolo wesibili wayegqoke ihoodie eyayimnyama noma eshilo ke ukuthi sebuya ke wayishintsha ke kodwa ke uyakhuluma ngayo ihoodie leyo emnyama.
My recollection, my lord, is that also I seem to recall that the description in terms of the height given by Mr. Makaleni was about 1.8. What I'm not sure of, and I can check during the long adjournment if there is any report or is contained in a statement of Colonel Mangena, because the exact measurement of how tall he is, this is now accused to, was established by Colonel Mangena during that exercise of trying, but that I don't recall, my lord. But Mr. Makaleni's one, I do recall that he estimated him to be 1.8. So one will have to see what Colonel Mangena says in collaboration of that. But the woody, the age, my lord, fits in. So the essence of this submission, my lord, as I said, when I confronted with him with the similarities, I forgot to mention that I was also at that time, because I knew how old he was, that he was fitting in terms of the estimation of the age by the neighbors who alleged that he saw someone wearing the hoodie back on the day of the incident, my lord.
Okunye futhi ke ngakusho ke ukuthi ke waye ubude bakhe ke noma wayemude kangakanani ke kodwa mangikhumbula kahle ke uma uMr Makeleni wayemchaza ke omunye lona ambona ke ukuthi ke kwaku 1.8 ungafanele nguye umuva ke manje ngithi uma ngabe yena ke uKenneth Mangena wayekhala ke ukuthi yena ke wakala wathini ke ubheka ke ukuthi khona yini ukuhlangana khona ke okunye futhi ke ngakhohlwa ke kuyena ke noma kusho ke ukuthi ke bathini uma ngabe sebechaza ke abantu labo noma ke omakhelwane.
Yes, ma'am.
Brigadier, let me put this so that we are not misunderstood.
Yes.
I read to you the contents of Exhibit J as they are. I did not take you through the description of Makaleni for the truthfulness or non-truthfulness thereof. I was simply reading the statement because I am aware, as you've already told the court, that Mr. Makaleni is deceased. So there are issues with Hearsay Evidence Act that must still apply, and the state did not apply for that evidence to be led in terms of Section 3.
As the court, please, my lord, there's a legal proposition. I mean, once you put a statement on record, you are saying, my lord, that it's not in dispute. You consciously put hearsay evidence on record. If you put hearsay evidence consciously on record, you cannot later on complain that it cannot be admitted. That's what my learned friend did. We therefore submit, my lord, that the proposition that is being put to the witness now that this is hearsay evidence is not correct, since they themselves put that on record.
My lord, that aspect is dealt with because I can tell this court.
It's what?
I can tell this court that Amanda Steenkamp, who compiled Exhibit J, it is my intention to call her during our defense.
No.
Yes.
I think you're talking at cross purposes. He's quoting a legal principle, your brother, Andoi.
Yes.
Concerning putting hearsay evidence.
It is. I'm very well aware that if I solicit hearsay evidence, it's then admissible.
Yeah, right. That's what he's talking about.
Yes. So we're going forward because remember my follow-up question to this Makaleni after the description given to Ms. Steenkamp. I asked you whether Makaleni was one of the persons that were in the house, or was it somebody that was just simply passing in the streets?
Yes, I do recall that question being asked, my lord.
Ngiyakhumbula ke lo mbuzo ubuzwa ke ukuthi ke ingabe uMakeleni kwakuwomunye wabantu ababesendlini noma kwakuwumuntu nje owayendlulela emgwaqweni.
And the reason I was reading that statement was twofold. One was to show the description of the firearm provided by the people in the house, and secondly, to show that the people in the house themselves, to Mrs. Steenkamp, none of the people described the features, the height, the length, anything to Mrs. Steenkamp. Those were my reasons. So the description of dreadlocks, golden insert, 1.8 meter in height, came from Makaleni, who's not the person that was in the house. That was the purpose I was showing. I was reading Exhibit J.
No, it is correct, my lord, but one also must understand on what context was Makaleli called in as a witness. If you read his statement, he indicates that he was passing the Kumalo's house, that was the scene, and he saw people who were sitting outside, which he took note of. As he was coming back, I think from the shop or from a certain walk, he saw some of these people running to an opposite direction. And then later, when he get closer to the Kumalos, that's when he was informed that these people who were running were involved in the shooting. So that's the context. That's why the investigators focus on him, because he was able to identify the alleged perpetrators outside the house before the incident took in, before they went into the house. That's how his statement was taken. So it was in that context.
Uma ke bekufundela ke lo exhibit J bekutshengisa ke ukuthi ke abantu labo ababesendlini ke bona akukho abakhuluma noma bechaza ke ukuthi labo abantu ababesendlini omunye wayenezinyo ke legolide noma ke bechaza ke ukuthi nama feature athile. uMakeleni yena kwakuwumuntu wayendlulela yabo kuyiqiniso ukuthi wayendlula ke lapha emgwaqweni kodwa wabona ukuthi kwakunabantu ababe lapho ke uma esebuya ke futhi la ayebuya khona esitolo noma ke kuhambo lolo ayothathileke wabona ke futhi labo bantu labo ke sebegijima noma bebaleka ke manje la esezotshela khona ukuthi labantu ke abebebaleka ke ibantu ababe lana ingakho ke singabaphenyi ke sabona ke kusemqoko ukuthi start istatement sakhe.
My Lord, I see it's just past 1 o'clock. Is this an opportune time to take the long agenda?
Okay, fine. Sorry, just there's a witness who speaks about a garage. Is that the same gentleman? Same person said the garage.
Garage.
No, remember that.
No. This one speaks to them. He places them around the case.
Who says he saw some people at the garage?
No, I think gas station is the word.
Gas station, okay. Hey, madam.
It's that witness. It's the same. Well, not a witness. It's the same person, my lord.